How many of these 20 forgotten tricks are you using right now to pull bucks into your shooting lane instead of hoping they wander through it on their own? I'm guessing one or two at most. I was using 0 until about 5 years ago, and the difference between 0 and even 4 or 5 of these changed my October and November completely. What I was doing wrong for most of my hunting life was thinking in one dimension. I'd hang a scent wick or pour some attractant and sit over it. One signal, one location, and then wait. The old-timers I've learned from over the years didn't think that way. They layered signals. Glandular scent on the licking branch, a different gland on the ground, interdigital on the entry trail, sound from one direction, a visual cue from another. Every signal said the same thing to the buck. Another deer is here, right now, doing something worth investigating. Not one signal. 5 signals, all confirming each other, all pointing to the same 20-yard window in front of the stand. That's what this list is. 20 tricks organized by the type of signal they send: glandular, scent trail, sound, visual, and timing, each one stacking on the others, so the buck doesn't just detect one clue and evaluate it from 60 yards. He detects a pattern that his brain reads as real activity, and he commits. The last one on the list involves 0 products and 0 setup, and it's backed by something every deer in your area does the morning after a rainstorm that most hunters completely ignore. The first group is glandular language, and this is where most hunters are leaving the most on the table. A deer's body has at least 7 distinct scent glands, and each one communicates something different. Most of us only use one, tarsal, because that's what the bottles at the pro shop contain. But the gland that deer use most on licking branches isn't the tarsal. It's the preorbital, the small gland in front of each eye. When a buck works a licking branch, he rubs his preorbital gland on the branch to leave his individual chemical signature. It's his ID badge. 3 to 4 drops of preorbital lure on a licking branch introduces an unknown buck into the area. Every local buck that detects it has to visit the branch to read who the stranger is. It doesn't spook them. It triggers territorial curiosity. The difference between preorbital and tarsal is the difference between a stranger walking into your house versus a stranger driving past it. Tarsal says, a buck was in the area. Preorbital says, a buck was here, on this branch, today. The specificity is what drives the response. Documented in Bowhunters magazine and validated across hundreds of trail camera photos. This works from July through the end of the season, which means you can use it for summer camera inventory in velvet, and then transition the same setup into a hunting tool in October. I started running preorbital on licking branches 3 summers ago on my lease in Ringgold County, Iowa. That's the rolling pasture and timber draw country along the Missouri border, where the crop fields sit on ridgetops and the bedding cover fills the draws between them. And my summer buck inventory went from maybe 8 individual bucks to 14 in the first year. My wife asked why there were bottles of deer gland extract in the refrigerator next to the orange juice. I told her it was for science. She stopped buying orange juice for a month. Same cameras, same locations, just a different gland on the branch. Trick 2 is the mock rub with forehead gland scent in your shooting lane. Peel the bark off a tree 2 to 3 inches in diameter, roughly the thickness of your wrist, at 18 to 24 inches off the ground, knee height on an adult. That's the height of a rub from a mature buck. Apply 4 to 5 drops of forehead gland, lure on the exposed wood. A buck passing through your lane detects the glandular scent of a buck that rubbed there, stops to investigate, and rubs his own forehead on the tree to overwrite the scent. That investigation window, 30 to 60 seconds of a buck standing completely still at a known distance, is your shot. I do this on every shooting lane now, and it's the cheapest insurance I carry. A buck that was going to walk through your lane at 3 miles per hour and give you a 2-second window now stops for 30 to 60 seconds at a known distance. That's the difference between a rush shot and a clean kill. Trick 3 is interdigital gland lure on your boots. The interdigital gland sits between the toes of each hoof. Its scent is what a deer leaves with every footstep, the exact chemical signature of its tracks. Apply interdigital lure to the soles of your rubber boots before you walk in, and your entry trail smells like a deer walked there instead of a human. A buck that crosses your entry trail doesn't get the alarm signal of human scent. He gets the neutral signal of another deer's footsteps. This isn't a cover scent that masks your smell. It's a replacement scent that rewrites it. Same principle as the turpentine trick I covered in an earlier video. Authentication instead of masking, but using the exact glandular compound deer deposit when they walk. I started using interdigital on my boots 2 seasons ago, and my entry trail blow rates dropped from roughly 1 every 3 sights to 1 in 10. That's not scientific, it's notebook data from 30 sits, but the pattern was consistent enough that I don't enter the woods without it anymore. Trick 4 is interdigital lure inside the mock scrape itself. 3 to 5 drops on the bare dirt makes the scrape smell like a specific deer was physically present pawing the ground. It's more specific and more convincing than buck urine because it replicates the scent of actual physical presence, not just a territorial marker. Bucks that detect it don't just sniff the branch, they paw the ground aggressively to overwrite the intruder's scent with their own. That aggressive pawing keeps them stationary and distracted, documented with what one forum called countless trail camera pictures on buckstick forums. Trick 5 is doe preorbital on a licking branch in a doe travel area. You're not attracting the buck directly. You're attracting what the buck is already following. Does that frequent a licking branch during pre-rut and seeking phase have bucks trailing them within 200 to 400 yards? Concentrate does at your branch and the bucks arrive on their own. Paul Pollock documented 6-year-old bucks arriving at mock scrapes established with doe preorbital. The does are the magnet. The buck follows the magnet. Your stand is where the magnet stops. That glandular communication system is what I wrote up in detail in the Buck Hunter's Bible, the field guide I put together with 77 tricks like these, each one with the biology behind it so you understand why it works. It covers preorbital, forehead, interdigital, and tarsal applications, plus scent control, stand placement by terrain, all 3 rut phases, and a chapter of old-timer methods that go back decades. There's a pre-hunt reference card at the back you can print and take to the stand. Links in the description below this video, or if you're watching on a TV, pull out your phone and scan the QR code on screen. All right, the second group. Scent trail engineering is the next layer, and this is where you stop hoping a buck crosses your scent and start guaranteeing it. Trick 6 is the figure 8 drag. If you watch the 14 tricks video, you know that a straight line drag trail only works if the buck happens to cross it from the right direction. A figure 8 pattern with your stand at the center, covering roughly 200 yards total, means any buck entering the area from any direction crosses the scent trail at least once. North, south, east, west, doesn't matter. The figure 8 eliminates the variable of approach direction. I run mine using tarsal during pre-rut and doe estrus during peak rut. The scent changes, but the geometry stays the same. A buck that crosses any part of the figure 8 follows the line toward the intersection point at the center, which is your stand. He can't avoid it because the trail crosses itself multiple times. Trick 7 is the scent bomb, positioned 30 to 40 yards downwind of your stand, not at it. Most guys hang the wick at the stand, and the buck arrives directly under them, looking up. Move the wick downwind, and the buck passes through your shooting lane on his way to the wick. You get a broadside shot at 15 to 20 yards, roughly the distance across a 2-car garage, instead of a deer standing under your summit platform staring at your boots. I made this mistake for 3 full seasons, before a buddy pointed out that every buck I called hung up at 40 yards was actually circling downwind of my wick, which was at the stand, which put his downwind verification loop right at the edge of my range instead of through my lane. Moving the wick fixed it the first sit. Trick 8 is the half-moon wick setup. Instead of 1 wick, place 4 to 5 wicks in a semicircle at 30 to 75 yards downwind of your stand. Any buck that enters from any downwind angle hits a wick and follows the scent toward the center of the arc, which is your lane. 1 wick can be circled, a semicircle can't. Warren Custom Outdoor documented this as one of the most effective bow hunting setups available. Trick 9 is the doe bedding material drag. Forget the bottle of doe estrus. Find a doe bed, an oval depression in leaves or grass about 30 by 50 inches, roughly the size of a bathtub. Wear rubber gloves, the kind you'd use with dead downwind laundry soap, and scoop up the compressed leaves, hair, and dirt from the bed, and seal it in a Ziploc bag. Drag that material on a rope from the bedding area to your stand. The scent is current, real, and contains the complete chemical profile of a live doe. Body oils, urine, hair, glandular secretions. No bottle replicates that complexity. A buck following that trail isn't expecting a threat at the end. He's expecting a doe. The freshness matters. Bedding material degrades in 24 to 48 hours, so collect and use it the same day or the day before your hunt. I found a doe bed on a south-facing slope about 300 yards from my stand last November, collected the material in a gallon Ziploc, and dragged it to my tree that afternoon. The next morning, a buck I'd never seen on camera followed the trail from the bed to my stand, with his nose 6 inches off the ground, and walked past me at 12 yards. I can't prove it was the drag that did it, but that buck was on a line from the bed to my tree that matched the drag trail exactly. And he'd never used that route before in 3 years of camera data. Sound and visual tricks make up the third group, and these are the ones most hunters never think about because they're not products you buy. Trick 10 is hanging horns. Tie a set of rattling antlers to one end of a 20-foot rope. Climb into your stand with the rope. The antlers hang at ground level below you. When you see a buck at 80 to 100 yards, roughly the length of a football field, that's about to walk out of range. Pull the rope so the antlers clash at ground level. The sound comes from the ground, not from your stand. The buck looks down, not up. He approaches the sound of 2 bucks sparring without ever detecting your movement 20 feet above. I've used this 3 times, and all 3 bucks came in looking at the ground, not the canopy. The sound source dictates where they look. Realtree documented this as the rattling method with the least hunter detection. Trick 11 is the salad bowl call sequence. During late pre-rut and seeking phase, run a contact grunt, a tending grunt, a doe bleat, and a snort wheeze in a single 90-second sequence. In a real breeding encounter, all 4 of these sounds happen simultaneously. A buck that hears the complete audio cocktail at 200 yards receives the signal that there's a serious event happening, a fight over a hot doe, and the biological urgency to investigate overrides his caution. I run this on a flex-tone call setup with my Bear Archery Refine at full draw, and the response rate is noticeably higher than any single call. I'll be honest, I felt ridiculous the first time I ran it. 4 different calls in 90 seconds sounds like a circus. But a real breeding encounter is a circus. Multiple deer, multiple sounds, chaos. The salad bowl replicates that chaos, and chaos is what makes a buck at 200 yards stop thinking and start moving. Trick 12 is the Elliott Strauman ground-level pawing sequence. When you spot a buck at distance that's about to leave range, position yourself downwind behind a tree and start cracking sticks, whipping brush, and pawing the ground with alternating feet. 3 with the right, 3 with the left, which is the exact cadence a buck uses when working a scrape. Finish with a vocal snort wheeze. Bucks have charged into 30 yards with their hair raised looking for the intruder. This is aggressive and only works during peak rut when testosterone is running high. Try it in early October on a calm morning and you'll spook everything in earshot. Trick 13 is the whitetail flick with a light-colored glove. A hunter in Craven County, North Carolina, that's the coastal plain east of New Bern, where the pine flats meet the Neuse River swamp and the deer move through open timber. You can see 80 yards in every direction. Use this on a buck that caught him mid-approach at 60 yards. If a deer detects you at distance while you're walking to your stand, don't freeze and hope it goes away. Duck behind a tree and flick your hand out 3 times with a light-colored wool glove. The motion mimics the tail flag of a deer moving through cover. The deer's brain reclassifies you from human threat to another deer moving. A mossy oak hunter documented killing a 154-inch 5x5 after using this exact technique when a buck spotted him during his approach. The buck calmed, resumed feeding, and walked to 28 yards. It sounds like something that shouldn't work, but deer process visual information before they process scent or sound. If the visual signal says deer, the brain accepts it before the nose has time to override. Timing and terrain tricks are the last group before number 20, and these are about being in the right place at the right time without any product at all. Trick 14 is glassing field edges at sunset to read the rut in real time. A buck walking straight to food means pre-rut or post-rut. A buck crossing the field diagonally with his nose on the ground, following a doe trail means seeking phase. A buck ignoring food entirely running zigzag patterns means peak rut. 3 evenings of observation with your Vortex binoculars tell you exactly where the rut stands without an app, without a calendar, without guessing. The old-timers didn't need a rut prediction chart because they were reading the rut in real time every evening from their truck with a pair of binoculars. 3 evenings of observation tells you more about where the rut stands on your property than any app that's predicting based on latitude and average historical dates. Trick 15 is hunting the conifer swamp interior in late season. Research from Michigan and Minnesota documented that mature bucks use conifer swamps of 5 to 40 acres with 50 to 70% canopy closure as preferred thermal cover in late season. Every other hunter is sitting on food plots and field edges. The mature buck has been sleeping in that swamp for weeks because nobody wants to hunt it. Hang a stand on the swamp periphery before post-rut, and you're hunting deer that haven't seen a human in months. A buddy who hunts public land in Chippewa County, Michigan, that's the Upper Peninsula country, where the jack pine and cedar swamps sit between the hardwood ridges and the snow comes early and stays late, killed his best buck ever doing exactly this. 3 years of hunting field edges produced nothing over 120 inches. One sit on the edge of a 15-acre cedar swamp in December produced a 147-inch 10-pointer that walked out at 9 a.m. like it owned the woods, because in that swamp, it did. He told me later that the hardest part wasn't the hunt. It was the 3 years of discipline it took to stop hunting the easy stands on the field edges and commit to the ugly, hard-to-access swamp that nobody else wanted. Trick 16 is grid hunting your property, including the sections you never hunt. A hunter in Iowa documented this in Realtree. He divided his property into equal sections and hunted all of them, including the ones with no sign and no obvious appeal. His target buck was bedding in the one section he would never have chosen, mature hardwoods with no dense cover, because the zero hunting pressure in that section was the only cover the buck needed. Pressure is a form of habitat. Where there is zero pressure, the deer feels safe regardless of what the terrain looks like. A mature buck will bed in an open hardwood flat with no understory if nobody ever walks through it. The absence of humans is the cover. Trick 17 is using fresh tarsal glands and urine from a buddy's kill within 48 hours. During pre-rut, if a hunting partner kills a buck, the tarsal glands and urine from that buck are the most potent attractant available for the next 2 days. Field and Stream documented a 10-pointer approaching to 20 yards of a hunter, standing next to his freshly killed buck, because the tarsal musk from the dead deer triggered a dominance investigation response in the approaching buck. That 48-hour window after a buddy's kill is one of the most underused opportunities in deer hunting. Keep a Ziploc bag in your pack during the rut, specifically for this. When your partner tags out, collect the tarsal glands and any urine you can catch before field dressing. That Ziploc becomes the most potent attractant you'll use all season, and it costs you nothing but a bag and the willingness to get your hands dirty. Trick 18 is stalking a buck that's locked down with a doe during peak rut. When the woods go dead and your stands are cold, the bucks aren't gone. They're locked with does in ditches, cedar clumps, and brush piles away from the main timber. Their guard is lower than any other time of year. An Iowa hunter documented this in Outdoor Life. Glassed a CRP field, spotted an 11-pointer with a doe under a cedar, climbed down from his stand, and stalked it. Getting out of the tree to stalk a locked-down buck during peak rut is the most ignored tactic of the season. It goes against everything we're taught about staying in the stand and being patient. But when the stands are dead and the deer are locked in cover, patience becomes an excuse for inaction. Sometimes the best move is the aggressive one. Trick 19 is the cornmeal and salt mix packed into a hollow log or stump. 1 part coarse salt, 1 part dry cornmeal. The deer has to nibble the material out of the log to consume it, which keeps him stationary for 3 to 5 minutes versus 30 seconds on bare ground. Refill weekly with half a cup of each. Full season cost under $10. Quick note, this is bait in every legal definition, so check your state regulations before using it. In states where baiting is banned, skip this one entirely. Where it's legal, it's been working since 1958 for the same biological reasons it works today. Everything on this list, plus about 55 more field-tested techniques, are in the Buck Hunter's Bible. It's the field reference I keep going back to because every trick has the reasoning behind it, not just steps. Glandular communication, scent trail design, rut phase tactics, and a chapter of old-timer methods. There's a 1-page reference card at the back that fits in your pack. 2 years of testing went into it, and it's in the description below. Point your phone at the QR code on screen if you're watching on a TV. Trick 20 is the one that costs nothing, requires zero gear, and is available to every hunter regardless of budget, property, or state regulations. Hunt the first 2 to 4 hours after a rainstorm ends. The ground is soaked, so every step you take is silent. The rain washed scent molecules out of the air, which means your scent plume is at its weakest of the entire month. Deer that were bedded through the rain are hungry and moving immediately to make up for lost feeding time. And the woods are empty because every other hunter went home when it started raining. Silent entry, minimal scent, active deer, zero competition. That combination creates a window that's better than any product on any shelf in any pro shop. A commenter on one of our videos got 59 likes saying exactly this, and I couldn't have said it better myself. The post-rain window is the single best entry condition of the month, and most hunters drive past it on their way home with wet boots and an excuse about the weather. I've killed 2 of my 4 best bucks during post-rain windows. Both times I almost talked myself out of going because the forecast looked bad. Both times I was the only truck in the parking area. Both times the deer were moving within 30 minutes of the rain stopping. The correlation between empty parking lots and full tags is not a coincidence. 20 tricks, most of them free, all of them stacking the same message. Another deer is here. Next time we're getting into thermals because half of these tricks work twice as well when you understand what the air does at 6 a.m. versus 3 p.m. from the same stand. Same setup, 3 different results. See you then.